If ever your life could be a true crime podcast episode, then this podcast is for you. We're about to embark on a roller coaster of emotions, insights, survival, and stories about escape. So buckle up and let the journey begin.
Oh my, it's begun.
It's begun.
The caffeine intake.
My best friend.
Her new best friend is a London fog.
Yes. I bet it has a British accent and everything. Love it, love it, love it.
Welcome into the Escape Pod, everybody. I'm Julie.
I'm Charity.
She is caffeinated, Charity, so that should be fun today. You said it's doing okay. Like your body is not like rejecting
I'm on a different supplement that's supposed to
help.
Yeah, so with histamine intolerance, she said basically, Charity, we're not going to put you through all the testing. Try this supplement. If it helps, then you have histamine intolerance.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, and it is helping. I still notice some things, but I'm definitely not, well, I shouldn't overdoing it. This is my third time this week having caffeine.
But
yesterday
like
was headache related.
3 times more than you've had in ages.
Lord have mercy, yes. And I would be feeling it by now. So we'll see how, like, as it builds up in my system, how I do this weekend if I'm struggling, like, bladder-wise. But
there you go.
Yeah.
What are you escaping this week?
Well, we've talked about my thumb. It is now normal length.
Is it?
Yes.
Can we double check that?
Yep. Demonstration. Here we go. Okay, let me line up.
Okay,
the
it's
joints.
not freakishly long anymore. Okay.
No, I think we're good. Yeah.
She's normal again, folks.
Yeah.
She's normal. She's gone back to normal size.
No more alien left thumb. Well, so it's been doing well. I've still been very careful, like with workouts. So, like, I can't use heavy hand weights. I'm, using light, and I'll do some different things like tie a resistance band around my wrist or something, just so I don't have to make that thumb to finger motion. Because the more pounds of pressure, the more it wants to burst out that joint. So, and I know this because I'm really wanting this to work, right?
Yeah.
So, the family's all together over Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I grab a deck of cards, and I didn't just jump into it, because that's one of the things I used to do all the time in my downtime as I'm decompressing is play solitaire.
Okay.
And that's how I noticed I was having a problem, was I couldn't, like, it hurt to shuffle cards.
Okay.
So I'm like, let me just try this. So I pick it up and I think gently, but it's still, to bend a deck of cards is a lot of pounds of pressure.
Uh-huh.
And so I barely did it and went, and it just, I blew it out. Yeah. And so I've been having problems with it. And then the one thing that did help it is to brace it. So I have one of those thumb joint braces. But then I started having a reaction to I'm guessing
Velcro
the stitching, because it was right along the seam, and the seam looks like some kind of elastic or whatever thread almost.
Yeah, it could be.
And so now I haven't been able to wear it. So I've just been being really careful. I have an appointment with my guy next week to see if I damaged it or if it's healing. I think it feels like it's healing, but definitely a setback. So that's what I'm escaping, is freaking cards, I guess. Yeah.
I'm hopefully escaping the creepy topics that we've covered in the last few episodes, because I woke up one
somebody in your walls?
night. No, but I heard something. And so where does my mind go, Charity Doyle? Is somebody in my walls?
Somebody might be in your walls. Okay, so the next 2 episodes that are coming, well, you would have heard them by now, I guess. They would have heard them by now. Okay, yep. Someone's in the walls.
Or my closet.
You're in a relative
or my
in your
attic.
house. Yep.
Or
under your bed.
So immediately I'm like, I did lock the doors. I did double check the doors. But it was actually, it was a really windy night outside, and I'm pretty sure that's why something knocked on the outside of the house. But, and I was kind of even chuckling at myself a little bit, because I thought how we discussed in the freaky frogging episodes that a lot of people just start to assume they have a ghost, and they kind of just toss it up to supernatural beings being in there.
Your brain goes to.
And I'm like, oh no, there's somebody in my house. Like, yes, that is where my brain goes.
Well,
yes,
hey, listen,
thank you.
Listen. In my defense, you would be much more prepared.
It's true.
Yeah. So someone who perhaps is frogging in your home is going to be less likely to be able to take advantage of
get
you and
away
overtake
with
you,
it,
because they're not going to be able to do the mind job on you. You're welcome.
Okay, so Are we covering a creepy topic today?
I wouldn't call it, well,
Depends on your perspective.
okay, so trigger warning, first of all, if you have an aversion to discussion of blood or menstruation, you might want to skip this episode. So creepy in that sense. And I'll get to how, like, some people are really grossed out by it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suppose.
I'm one of those people. Like, obviously, I'm not messing around with anyone else's stuff, but
Right.
I'm very thoroughly grossed out by by it. But we're going to have two issues today around. So one is we're going to talk about period products, like escaping period products, because there's some really interesting research after all of these years
Okay.
that is finally coming out about these products and why it's not so prevalently known. We'll talk about that. And yeah, that's really eye-opening. And then as a little fun tangent, we're going to go down the rabbit hole of how women and women's issues have been perceived, dealt with, treated, I'm using very thick air quotes,
Yeah.
throughout the different centuries.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be really eye-opening. And quite honestly, I don't know if today is much different than back in the early days. So that's what we're going to talk about today.
We're still in the dark ages sometimes. Tell me more.
Well, first of all, I thought it would be fun to talk about different slang terms that
Okay.
periods or menstruation is known as. So what do you have in
I
your brain?
think of the curse.
The curse, that's the first one I had.
It's a good one,
Yeah,
right?
yep.
That's a good one. The only other one I can think of, just off the top of my head, is you got like monthly visitor or Aunt Flo.
Aunt Flo, yeah.
Yep,
Aunt
that's
Flo's
all I
on
got.
there.
I don't know that I've ever. I don't know what else I would have heard.
Okay. When I was young, they were on the rag
Oh yeah, I guess.
or Little Red Friend.
I've never heard that.
Oh, you haven't heard that one?
Nope.
I had some friends in my younger, like 30s, and it was getting your moon.
Oh,
You get your moon.
I did not hear anything like that until we were discussing like a sweat ceremony.
Sweat lodge, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep, getting your moon. Time of the month, lady time, Bloody Mary.
Ugh,
I know.
that's gross.
That is gross. Here's one from Russia. A Little Red Riding Hood.
Okay. All right.
Strawberry Week. That's from Germany.
Oh,
Like strawberry
kind of
jam.
weird.
I mean,
I like strawberries.
I know. I wonder if they just really don't like strawberries in Germany. The Crimson Wave in the UK.
Okay.
That's kind of funny.
A little bit.
The Red Tide.
I maybe have heard that
I
one.
thought that was like a football thing.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Yeah.
Is Crimson Tide. So Alabama, boy, you've got all of that covered.
Code Red. Code Red. That's another one.
Okay.
The one it took me a couple times to think about, and then I think I got it, is from India.
Okay.
Chums.
I don't get it.
Isn't it chum that you put in the water to like stir up?
Oh, yeah. Probably is what it is.
Yeah. So I'm like, "Ugh." Okay.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. So again, trigger warning. Also, if you have an aversion to chum, you might want to skip this episode.
That
Okay.
I do.
Are you ready for the research?
Sure.
Okay. According to the ACLU, on any given day, how many people do you think are menstruating across the globe?
A lot.
Just give it a go. Give it a go if you had to guess. Any given day.
1 billion.
Oh, you're close. 800 million. Nice job, Julie.
Victory.
Victory. And 2/3 of these women lack basic menstrual hygiene products.
Yeah,
so that's really
right.
sad.
Ugh.
And of course, that issue impacts more prevalently women struggling in the crisis of poverty, people who are experiencing homelessness, all of that. Women who are incarcerated. I went down a lot, and we'll talk about it too, of incarcerated women, rabbit holes, and menstrual products like they're gold.
Oh.
And they are withheld,
bet.
and it is not. It's a currency. It's really, really horrific. So.
I would think depending on your lifestyle. So if you were living a very like rural I don't want to say primitive, but in places where you live a more simpler life, it actually would probably be easier to not have the things in our society where, like, I will tell you, I was at a park one day where back in the day, I don't know if it's still a prevalent place for people without homes to kind of just spend time like in the summer, but we were by a children's playground and there was like a used tampon sitting on the edge of the playground.
Oh.
And it was just, it was one, gross, but two, also, yes, very sad.
But there's garbage cans.
Well, there are garbage
around,
cans,
so...
but just the idea, I was just thinking to myself, like, I don't have to like do that in some random place if I need to do it. I find a bathroom.
Well,
not everybody has
people
that
have
luxury
choices
in
to
the
make
moment.
Sometimes, right? Because that brings to mind, I did not plan this, so
no judgment.
No judgment, and also, God help me. Okay, so we were hiking this summer, my husband and I, and we get all to the top of Black Elk Peak and chilled out on top of the rocks for a while, laid down, just kind of enjoyed it. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I was having my period, and I get up and we start our way down, and it feels like the tampon's going to come out.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh my God, I have nothing for backup, and there's nowhere to go. It's a 4-mile hike.
Yeah.
And there's no porta potties, there's nothing. And it was a hugely busy day. Oh. And I'm like, okay, well, I am going to get really tight Kegel muscles, and I'm going to just walk down this freaking mountain
really fast,
squeezing everything for all I have to make sure it doesn't fall out, because I'm like, I'm not going to carry it. I don't want to leave it in nature. So I'm having this whole thing. And this is on a quick descent.
Yeah.
Hour and a half maybe.
Yeah, I would guess.
Yeah. In our prime, really fit. We could haul butt up there in like an hour. But so I'd say a decent, descent pace is probably an hour and a half to get all the way down back to the trailhead. And by the time I got down there and to the actual bathrooms, I'd actually done damage. Like it was not good. Oh, and shoot. I couldn't, there was no way. And after doing this research, I won't use tampons ever again. So that was kind of the beginning of it. But but if you just couldn't, or it actually does because your flow is so heavy or whatever, and you don't have a place.
Yeah.
Granted, I wouldn't put it out in sight of a children's playground.
Right.
There's still some discretion you should be able to have over that. But again, okay. So thinking about not having access to these resources, like to purchase the products themselves or just, be given the products, people resort to using things like diapers, paper towels, rags, actual rags, or paper, or resorting to using menstrual hygiene products much longer than recommended. Right. All of which have possible health implications. And those health implications really were surprising to me, like reproductive tract infections from that, and being more susceptible to STDs, including HPV. So pretty serious to overuse something, but a lot of cases women don't have, it's either do that or use nothing.
Well, and it's like babies, families that don't have a lot of money for diapers, and so babies sit in diapers longer than they should, and then you have diaper rash, and it can have other implications as well. It's all
that's terrible.
Kind of similar, right?
Yeah. Not so fun fact. I learned this during my research. Women on WIC, women, infant, children, they are not allowed to use those benefits on menstrual products.
I knew that.
They can even be prosecuted for trading benefits to gain access to these products. These are mothers.
Yeah.
They're going to have their period. They have postpartum related issues and can not use that benefit to purchase female hygiene products.
Right.
Like, how much sense does that make? Viva la government, I guess. Infinite wisdom. Absolutely ridiculous. And in prisons, it's even worse. This really, really surprised me. So detainees lacking resources to purchase hygiene products from the commissary often have to bleed through their clothing.
Sure.
and they have to rewear that same clothing day after day until their particular laundry day, which is once a week. And it's humiliating, and it's unsanitary. And there are numerous reports of correctional officers coercing women for sexual favors in exchange for basic hygiene products.
Well, that is horrifying.
It is horrifying. It is disgusting. And there should be a special prison for people who take advantage of others in this way. It's horrific. And even the ones like where they have access to the products, the cost of the items might be prohibitive in the commissary. They're jacking, like in Colorado, for example, a box of tampons, and I think it might be 8 tampons or something. So like a little box can cost as much as 2 weeks worth of prison wages.
Ooh.
And when they need those limited resources to be able to pay for phone calls or call their attorneys or whatever the case is, obviously that becomes a huge problem, right? And there are only 13 states that have laws addressing period product inequities in prisons, 4 states with laws addressing period product inequities in public schools, 4, and 1 state with laws addressing this in homeless shelters. And 13 states with tax exemptions on period products to lessen the cost for people struggling in the crisis of poverty. What does South Dakota have?
0.
I
didn't know that, but I can guess pretty well.
2 for 2, Julie. Yes. Okay. I remember I was sometime earlier in like spring or summertime, I was listening to an episode of Sinisterhood. And you probably never listened to that one.
I haven't.
It's one of my favorites. So one of the co-hosts is an attorney, and she will drill down into like the legal side of the cases and stuff that they cover, and it's just really cool. Well, she was talking, her name's Heather, she was talking about the fact at that time, which is probably still true, there had been 0 research on period products with actual menstrual blood. And if you are a female, you know that menstrual blood is very different than you just cut a vein, right?
Correct.
So, and it's just really mind-boggling because the womb is the literal gateway to the world. And instead of reverence, there's still all of this taboo and shame around that time of the month. I remember watching a video. I don't know how I found this. Just your algorithms get all wonky. That was fun for a while. But a woman from Madagascar. And she was having her period, how dirty and shameful it was thought of by the other, like the men in her village.
Okay.
That's how they got into the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, and you think about, most heterosexual men, what are they dying to get at, right? But only on their terms. I mean, she had no clean water, like to clean herself or the rags she would use. And then, do you remember I was telling you about, here I go, rabbit hole number 17 already, probably. My new favorite show, Yellow Jackets. So, I don't even know how many of them are. It's a whole soccer team worth of girls, and they get plane crash in the woods and all this stuff. And what they're having to do and then of course their cycles all sync, so they all need
stuff at the same time.
All at the same time, and how it was just really like going, interesting.
Yeah, like the things that you...
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then we were talking about the Sinisterhood episode, and my daughter, because she and I both listened to that, and she said, well, yeah, Mom, listen, they've also done research on period products themselves and all the terrible toxins they're finding in them. And so I'm like, seriously? So we sat there and we started like looking those up. Yep, found studies, even organic and natural brands. They're finding these things. It's really terrifying. And so I'm thinking, after I share all this with you, maybe one solution is that women everywhere should just take a stand and we should just bleed everywhere in unity. And then I bet that the powers that be will start making some changes real quick.
I'm not doing that, but that is a bold suggestion.
Yeah. I mean, especially with, you'd think, okay, Armageddon or something. Okay.
Yeah.
You want to take any guesses at what researchers are discovering in our feminine hygiene products?
Oh, I'm sure these are like, it's ignorance is bliss. I'm not sure I want to know, but go ahead.
Well, I'm going to give you another reason not to sleep.
Great.
Okay. And by the way, let me say this too. There are no laws in these great United States that regulate any of this.
That's interesting.
And anything goes because it's all about
money.
Cha-ching. Do we have a cha-ching button?
We do not.
We need one.
Sorry.
And in the United States, how they get around this is they're considered medical devices. and as such are not required to list ingredients on labels.
How are they not a hygiene product? Like
they're marketed that way, but they're classified as a medical product. So you're sticking who knows what up your...
Interesting.
Yeah. And from what I could find, New York and California so far are the only states, from what I could find. I hope there's more, but I'm not feeling super confident about that. To at least introduce legislation around this, making it the law to list these substances on the product's packaging.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So the two big ones are lead and arsenic.
Okay.
Lead and arsenic. Do you need me to say it a third time?
Nope.
I mean, would you do that knowingly? Like you're exposing, anyway. Other toxic chemicals such as PFASs. So here we go. Go test out my chemistry days.
Yeah.
All right. Perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl alkyl substances and phthalates and other volatile organic compounds. So PFASs, we'll just say PFAs, are used to make period products more absorbent and stain resistant. So think about that. And then think about how absorptive the lining in our vagina is compared to other skin, like our exterior skin. I mean, it's really vulnerable. So PFAs have been shown to here's all the fun stuff, disrupt the body's endocrine system, which regulates sexual development, metabolism, blood sugar, mood, sleep. In one study I saw referenced in an article, they found that organic tampons contain higher levels of arsenic, while non-organic tampons had higher levels of lead, and that the average lead concentration was about 10 times higher than the maximum levels currently allowed in drinking water.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the question became for me, like, well, are these companies doing this knowingly or not? At this point in our, like, the research is out there, they've got to know it, right?
Right.
But from what I can gather, like, I don't think they're putting these toxins into the products. It seems more likely that it's the plants they use in.
Correct. Yeah. That's what I was kind of wondering is like some of these things are naturally occurring, right? So is there a way to pull them out before they're included in the product?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you're right. The contaminants in the soil water, contaminants, all of that, they make their way into the plant. That's the first piece. But then there are things that they don't need to do. It just makes the product more marketable, the bleaching, processing that makes it leaves potentially harmful residues on the product. I mean, most tampons are made of for people who don't know this, made of cotton or a mixture of cotton and rayon. And rayon's a semi-synthetic fiber made from wood pulp. So you've got all these different plants coming together in the different environments that they're grown in. And those things are all just like your food. Anything that your food is grown in is going to make its way into the food too.
Yeah.
So, and phthalates are man-made chemicals that are used to make plastics.
Yeah.
Okay. And they've been discovered in sanitary pads, panty liners, and tampons to the tune of being discovered in 48% of sanitary pads, incontinence pads and panty liners, and 22% of tampons, and 65% of period underwear.
Interesting.
Yeah. So very prevalent. The important thing to know about PFAs is that they do not easily break down in the environment. These are the forever types of chemicals, and they're now being linked to altering hormonal and metabolic pathways needed for growth and development in young children.
That's interesting.
They're linked to increased risk of adult kidney cancer, abnormally high cholesterol levels, decreased fertility, certain types of cancers, and decreased effectiveness of the immune response.
Interesting.
None of which are good.
No.
And no one knows yet, however, with all of this, how much of these toxins actually get into our bodies. Because guess what? We're just women. And we're just
the
gateway
research
to
really
the world,
isn't being done.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
I mean, someday.
Yeah.
Someday, when women maybe have been around for 10 million years.
Well, you make me wonder, though, like, I guess, how long have tampons been around?
I don't know. You want me to Google it quick?
Sure. Because I'm just thinking, like, I don't know. I just grew up with them. Like, I've never thought about the fact that I've thought about the fact they weren't always a thing, but when did they become a thing?
Great question. The first modern tampon, according to the AI on Google, was patented in 1931 by Dr. Earl Haas.
So
But
longer ago than I would have thought.
women
Yes.
have been using tampon-like devices for thousands of years, this says. So including Egypt. This won't be in the show notes, guys. This is straight out of Google. Egypt in the 15th century BCE, Egyptian women used softened papyrus wood. Hawaii, women used the furry part of the hapu fern. Japan used small bandages. Equatorial Africa, women used rolls of grass. And in ancient Rome, women used wool.
Okay.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Also good you. You're 3 for 3 today. All right. Okay. But because this is now the research is coming out as far as what's in it, there's a lot more awareness spreading around this issue.
Sure.
So I'm guessing companies are going to have to finally invest in the research, or new companies that actually care about what women are putting in their bodies, and, you know, female reproductive health are going to crop up and run the others out of business.
One would
One
hope.
way or the other, something
Yeah.
good is going to come out of this research.
Yep.
And obviously, periods have been occurring as long as humans have been on the planet, right? Or animals in general, mammals. So why all the unease around the topic? You know, and I get some people just have an aversion to blood in
Yeah.
general, and it's like a, you know, like the gore. We talked about my son and his fainting spells and all this stuff. But like, why, you know, all that women go through during that time of the month, why is it still so taboo in so many places around the world, and in some cases even our own country?
Yeah.
So I thought we could do a little history
Okay.
lesson on the subject.
Okay.
And I remember long time ago hearing about where the word hysteria came from.
Okay.
Okay. It's derived from the Greek word hystera, which means uterus.
Okay.
So anyone being hysterical, first it was attributed to being a woman because women were the only ones with uteruses. So the word, hysterical itself comes from the Greek hysterikos, meaning suffering in the womb. So yeah, ancient Greeks believed that when a woman was being irrational, it was because her uterus was literally, are you ready? This cracks me up. Wandering around her body causing trouble.
Yes.
I mean,
It was even better than I expected it to be.
it's like it has a mind of its own. I
Well-
think that's projection.
Do you feel like sometimes it does have a mind of its own? Because I could say it does some days.
I think that is way less likely than wandering penises. Because penises get dudes in trouble.
Right?
Yes.
So much trouble.
That for sure. It's like having a second brain. And yet, you know, it's like, so it's projection. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
we can't handle this. So we're going to so the woman becomes taboo. We're the weaker sex, blah, blah, blah. All that historical stupidity. Anyway, but I still think penises cause way more havoc on the world than we do.
I suspect so. So. Yeah.
Raping, pillaging, all that stuff.
I mean,
But women
just
are the
making dumb
problem.
decisions sometimes on a day-to-day basis, depending on
Also
your
that.
age.
Or how many
Or-
pheromones are in the air. I like it, like the whole ability for the brain in your skull to function relative. Never mind, I better just stop.
Just stop.
Okay. So for centuries, doctors would diagnose women with any symptom that was either inconvenient or made men uncomfortable as a mental health condition that they dubbed
Hysteria.
hysteria. And some of these symptoms included, I'm not really laughing. I'm like, I would love a time machine. Do you know? Oh, man. Okay. Okay, so what we would now label is
PMS.
PTSD, even PMS.
Oh, okay.
PTSD, just being in a bad mood, like me
Okay.
when it's cloudy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad. I have seasonal affective stuff. I need sunshine. Even being sad or melancholy, having a fondness of writing.
Oh. Huh.
I think that's just like, oh my gosh, she's using her brain too much.
I was going to say, God forbid she has ideas.
I know. What is it? EGAD. Okay, even infertility.
Yeah.
And my favorite, tendency to cause trouble for others. that was all lumped into this whole
You've
hysteria.
had hysteria for 50 years.
I sure have. Yep. All right, so now let's look at how it was actually addressed through the ages. So fourth
I'm
and
glad
fifth.
she knows I'm kidding.
Of course I do. Okay, 4th and 5th century BCE, ancient Greece.
Okay.
Plato compared the uterus to a living creature that wanders through a woman's body wreaking havoc,
Okay.
especially when it's not joined with a man
Oh.
or does not bear a child.
Oh.
Yay, viva la patriarchy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The cure,
I wish you could see her face.
I'm going to try to say this with a straight face because I'm sure they took this very seriously. The cure, quote, hysterical suffocation, end quote.
Okay.
So this is scent therapy in which good smells were placed under the woman's genitals and bad noxious odors were placed at her nose, which would drive the uterus away from the thing that smelled bad and towards the thing that smelled good. And it would do that until the uterus got back to its correct place.
All right.
Doesn't that seem far-fetched? I mean, these are philosophers we're still quoting to this day. What, are you kidding me?
I'm just
How
thinking
could we
to
take
myself,
how can we take anything else?
I'm like, why wouldn't I get to smell the good thing to drive the bad thing out of the way?
Because not only this is the point you missed. Not only does the uterus just wander around your body wreaking havoc, giving you ideas and emotions and stuff, it also has its own like olfactory nerves and it can smell things. It wants to go towards the good stuff and away from the bad stuff. So let's get that uterus away from the brain because that's causing problems and this woman is behaving in a way that I as a poor little man just cannot handle. So
it makes a lot more sense now. Yes.
Yay, Plato. Okay. Other doctors of that time included that they prescribed sexual intercourse. Of course they did.
Of course they did.
I'm sure some of them even helped things along. And they would also rub ointments into the genitals of women because why not? Good Lord. Can you imagine today if a doctor just said, you just need to get laid?
No.
No.
Because that's the time of the month when you really feel the need to do that.
Right, also that. Okay. Okay, let's jump to the Middle Ages and the Renaissance. Think things were better or worse?
Probably worse.
There's probably torture devices involved, right? I don't know that.
We've already talked about the Dark Ages once.
Yeah,
but now we're in the Renaissance.
Now we're in the Renaissance. Okay. Right. So hysteria was attributed to demonic possession during this time. It was thought that demons were attracted to sad people, particularly to single women and the elderly. Did you see how I went sad there? Did you buy it? Okay.
Well, I almost spit out my coffee when you said demons. I mean, to be fair, again, there are some days when you feel like you are possessed by it. But generally speaking, I mean, you know.
But yet, do you ever hear demonic possession attributed to the rapists in the world?
No.
Never have I. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but certainly not a prevalent theory.
Right.
Pastors are getting away with everything. Okay. So specifically in this time period, the 16th and 17th century, hysteria was believed to be due to the retention of fluids in the uterus, sexual deprivation, or by the wandering uterus theory. This one's still hanging on.
And the fact that it comes every month doesn't hint to anybody that it's just part of life.
No.
That's the funny thing. I can time it by the moon.
But I mean, you have people on ranches or that work with animals and they know, and it's just a natural part of biology.
Yes.
But then when it comes to, human women, it's a whole nother thing.
Right.
And it also cracks me up on how much thought, stupid thought, but how much thought they put into these theories.
Yeah.
Instead of just okay, she needs a time out. She doesn't want to be around me right now.
Yeah.
She needs some alone time. That's okay. So here's what they were prescribing. No, this is not what they were prescribing. So self-treatment, such as masturbation, was not recommended and was also considered taboo, but marriage and regular sexual intercourse was the most highly recommended long-term course for hysteria because, oh, this was my favorite one. Are you ready?
Yes.
Semen was thought to have healing properties.
Okay.
Magic. Men have all the magic. Okay. 18th century. So we're up to 1748
Is
now.
that what we're calling it now? Magic?
Magic. Yep. Don't let them hear this crap. Cure all. You can just see it. What were we watching? Oh, no, it was an episode of South Park. That's what it was. And
There's a lot of wisdom there.
you know what? I better not. It's really
Okay.
bad. Okay. It's so bad. Never mind. Okay. 1748, a prominent French physician, I won't even try his name. I'll call him Joe. He described hysteria as a vaporous ailment, meaning an illness spread through air pollution in large urban areas.
Okay.
So men also don't breathe. It just
Great.
impacts women.
It only impacts
Okay.
women.
And so that does become the question, right? Why women more than men then if it's airborne? Obviously, he thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
And he opines that it's because women had lazy and irritable natures. Duh.
I mean, sometimes.
Sometimes, but so do men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 1773, another French physician whose name I'm not going to even attempt, described hysteria as something akin to emotional instability, subject to sudden changes with great sensibility of the soul. So moodiness, in other words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with other associated symptoms such as swollen abdomen, like period bloating, angina, like chest pain, shortness of breath or difficulty swallowing, cold in your extremities, like your fingers and feet,
Okay.
tears and laughter.
So any emotion.
The whole spectrum, evidently. Yawning,
Oh, heaven help me.
stretching and yawning was even worse. You know that whole...
Yeah.
Nope. Delirium. And abundant and clear urine.
Oh, that just means you're drinking a lot of water.
Yeah, well, clearly you're afflicted. So this means, according to this guy's logic, again, male, a well-hydrated premenstrual woman waking up from a nap, she's got to be possessed by a fucking demon. Like, there's just no other answer. And think about some of the other symptoms. I mean, I've had cramps so bad that they've taken the breath out of me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Demon. A demon
I have to apologize.
crushing my
because
uterus.
I don't know what you mean because I am fortunate that I don't have that particular issue most of the time. But I feel my heart goes out to people who do. So
It's not often, but I have had, and it's not. So even better, this is fun. This same genius that we're just talking about, he theorized that sexual deprivation was to blame for female hysteria.
I mean, that doesn't really surprise me.
I wonder if he probably would if the magic semen thing was, anyway. So again, penis solves everything, right? He even went so far as to do, as to present a case study of a nun affected by hysteria who became cured, quote, only when a well-wishing barber took it upon himself to pleasure her.
No,
That's what he did the study on.
that's
That is,
horrendous.
yes. Then there was a German doctor, Franz Mesmer, I can say his name, who treated hysteria through mesmerism. So he's the one who coined that.
Okay.
Believing, oh, yeah, it was a great face. Okay. I don't remember what's coming because I did
Okay.
this some time ago. So he believed that all living beings were influenced by magnetism. So like an invisible current that ran through animals and humans.
Okay.
And whose imbalances or fluctuations could lead to health disruptions. So it's similar to like, acupuncture and the meridian system and like Chinese medicine and things like that. He claimed that he could influence or manipulate this magnetic current and therefore hysteria,
Okay.
which is acupuncture. I have that done once a month. So he may have actually been onto something here. 19th century, so around 1850s, American physician named Dr. Silas Mitchell promoted rest cure
Amen.
for hysteria, which involved lots of bed rest and strict avoidance of all physical and intellectual activities.
Oh, you had me at bed
I know.
rest.
And oddly, on the rare occasion men were afflicted with hysteria, the same doctor prescribed outdoor exercise.
Interesting.
Yeah. Our little fragile constitutions just can't handle hike. Okay. Now, Sigmund Freud's coming onto the scene here, and he argued that hysteria was the conversion of psychological issues into physical symptoms.
Okay.
Which
isn't all wrong.
I mean, if we'd been talking about like PTSD specifically, okay. And he said that often came with an element of erotic suppression because he's Dr. Freud.
See.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that either. Okay. At first, he suggested that symptoms of hysteria were caused by traumatic events, though later he said that the previous trauma was not necessary for hysteria to develop.
Okay.
Okay. And because all these theories were being generated by men in the late 19th century, doctors would often treat female patients' hysteria symptoms by manually stimulating them. It got so mucked up, blaming the uterus for everything, that hysterectomies were performed to cure women of their mental illness, Julie.
Oh, ouch.
Yes. So, in the 1910s, psychiatrist Ellie Emerson was heavily involved in treating patients of hysteria at the Boston Psychopathic Hospital. He did case studies on his patients who were often young, single, native-born, and white. I don't know what he means by native-born.
Okay.
And either had been raped or had had a lack of healthy sexual relationships. He claimed that women who had experienced sexual violence and practiced self-harm were releasing the pain of the sexual violence that way, and that it was a substitute for masturbation, because I think all of these doctors were like sex-focused or obsessed or something. Some women purposefully sought out the hysteric diagnosis because they believed it could provide an answer to what they were experiencing. They just didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And of course, with, years behind them and their way they were raised, being taught that you're just inherently flawed because you have a uterus, they just didn't have any, there has not been a logical train of thought up until, to this point. The problem with this was that it became a more popular diagnosis, and police even began treating any report for sexual assault or rape with skepticism because it was becoming so prevalent that people were faking it. So it was so common at the belief that sexual assault is physically impossible without consent.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're just...
Till it happens to their daughter, perhaps.
Right.
Yeah. New theories relating to hysteria came from pure speculation, because they've done well with that so far. Doctors and physicians could not connect symptoms to the disorder, causing it to decline rapidly as a diagnosis. So hysteria was officially taken out of their vernacular and diagnosis list in 1980.
It's a great year.
1980. Was that when you were born?
Yeah.
Yeah. So today, female hysteria is no longer a recognized illness.
Yay!
Oh my gosh, we're so lucky. Okay, but different manifestations of hysteria are recognized in other conditions such as schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, conversion disorder, and anxiety attacks. And more recently, there's more awareness spreading around PMDD.
I don't know what that is.
Let me tell you, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And its symptoms, which can be both mental and physical and can be quite extreme, affecting up to 8% of women. So it's kind of like PMS on steroids with some other things. So, but it's still not quite the same. So PMDD is much more intense. It has physical symptoms, including fatigue and migraines, and psychological symptoms, including really severe mood swings and anxiety. PMDD can be so debilitating that 15% of those with it have attempted suicide.
Oh.
And some young women impacted by this are opting for hysterectomies even now. So we know that now, because we're so much wiser than we were clearly in the whole wandering womb, wandering uterus days, that hormone fluctuation associated with the menstrual cycle can affect us both positively and negatively.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It can make us more anxious. It can make us irritable at times. Various studies have indicated that PMS symptoms that some women get before their period is at least partially genetic. And research published in 2017 also found unusual gene expressions in people with PMDD that makes them unusually sensitive to estrogen and progesterone fluctuations. So PMDD is now considered a cellular genetic malfunction, in response to hormone changes and is being taken more seriously by medical professionals, even though it's still being misdiagnosed.
Okay.
And so to put PMDD in perspective, it's like PMS on steroids, like I said earlier, and it could lead to self-destructive or destructive acts. So road rage, baby shaking, rear-ending someone who pisses you off, attacking your significant other or your children, impulsivity, aggression, antisocial behaviors, all those kinds of things. So it's not just the bloating and the headaches and the cramps and the, tender breasts and all that and the mood swings. It's taking it to a new level.
Yep.
In the UK, PMDD has actually been used as a defense in criminal court.
Interesting.
Not here, though.
Okay. Interesting.
Very interesting. And the best known case of this involves a lady by the name of Sandy Craddock. She was a bartender in London who in 1981 stabbed a coworker.
Okay.
The murder was the latest in a long history of criminal offenses in her history, including arson, assault, and theft, although she maintains that she has no clear memory of any of these crimes.
Huh.
Her defense pleaded diminished responsibility, producing diaries and records showing that this violence had been so cyclical and contending that her premenstrual hormonal changes were so severe that they filled her with rage. This ended up dropping all her charges against her, or dropping the charges from homicide to manslaughter, I should say. Okay. And then they studied her while she was on probation, and this is what's interesting. They began treating Sandy with progesterone cream while she was on probation, and she was ordered to continue the treatment. But there were 2 occasions where she either received no progesterone or received a lower dose. So they were
intentionally.
Okay. Yep, just to see what would happen. The first time, she chucked a brick through a window.
Oh.
For the record, I have never done that. I've been mad. I've thrown stuff. Never thrown a brick through a window.
Okay.
The second time, she attempted suicide and carried a knife to a police station. And before, she was sentenced to more probation. So in 2018, the High Court in India, I can't pronounce this word, acquitted a woman of murder after she was accused of pushing 3 children into a well, killing one of them.
Oh, no.
Doctors called to court testified that the defendant had been suffering from severe PMS, making her aggressive. So there are multiple cases of these things happening. And so nowadays, to diagnose PMDD, a doctor would need 2 months of daily records to show the cyclical nature of the symptoms that the woman is experiencing. So,
well, it kind of reminds me of the difference between like baby blues and true postpartum depression, right? It's kind of similar in that way where lots of women experience some level of whatever's
going, yeah.
Yeah, like sadness or just not feeling like themselves for a little bit after they have a baby. But then there's like, here's what you need to watch for if it's like dangerous, right? If it's true, like postpartum depression, serious depression. And it's like the fact that everything's taken to basically a potentially dangerous level. And so that's what it's like, yeah, there's PMS and there's not feeling great. And then there's, oh my gosh, we're like, everything's just up, not a notch, but 10 notches.
Well, I mean, I just think about like putting some of these things into perspective in a couple of ways. One, what was it, 9 degrees on Monday morning? And then Saturday it's going to be like 70.
Right.
That's a pretty big freaking swing, right? And for people, especially with this time of year, like seasonal affective, like that kind of a thing will really alter my mood. And then I think about my stage in life and, being perimenopausal and all the stuff that's happened. So about a year ago, one of the lowest points of my life. And I'm just like, I can't figure this out. I'm going to doctor after doctor after doctor. Like, I work out all the time and I'm getting fatter. I cannot, I'm exhausted mentally, physically, all this stuff. Nothing is working. My whole body was revolting. I felt like I was walking around in someone else's meat suit and I just didn't know how to operate it. Like nothing was working. Skin, hair, sleep, everything was just out the window. So all these things I've done for so many years for health benefits and trying to stay healthy and maintain that, everything was out the window. So I'd go to, Dr. One and there's like digestive issues and say, okay, well, could this be related to hormones? I asked it every single time. At the same time, I'm also having these allergic allergy-like symptoms. So I go to an allergist.
Yeah.
And I'm getting all the tests. And I'm like, could it be related to hormones? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Very nice, young, lovely doctor who's not going to hit perimenopausal stage for probably 40 effing years. So, but just like you guys need to talk. We were talking about nonprofits being siloed. The freaking medical world needs to stop being siloed and like learn some things. So, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. Anyway, so I start seeing a functional med doc and get all of my hormones mapped out. Like, where's my baseline? What do I look like right now?
Mm-hmm.
And could that be the answer to what is causing all these problems? Holy crap. All I was producing was estrogen and cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
Not a great cocktail.
No.
So I was just like just everything was depressed, putting on weight, like all the stuff, the mental fog, all of it. And then the metabolism was just dead.
Yeah.
So I did get put on bioidentical hormone therapy, so progesterone and testosterone, because I was producing nothing, absolutely nothing on that side of the spectrum. Balanced everything out. It's incredible. So, and you think too about going back to the whole hysteria conversation, women in that stage of life, menopause is still very, there's more coming out about it, but it's still like, for as long, again, as women have been around, and this stage of life has been around just as long, we don't really understand it. And so when you're going to seek medical attention for something, they're not looking at that. They're just looking at this little, like, here's the symptom you're having. It could be 42 other things, but we're not even going to look at hormones.
Well, I think they look through the lens of the specialty they're in. And I had somebody say this to me a long, long time ago that, if you have this issue and you go to this kind of doctor, well, whatever they're practicing, that's what their kind of focus is. And then if you go to somebody else, just like you're kind of describing, the thought that it could be something totally different or that a different way of treating it might actually be the most effective way of treating it, but they kind of have their lens, right, if they are in a specialty. And so I think they're not so unlike us in that it's not maybe intentional, but it's still a bias that can be very narrow focused.
That's why people need to advocate for themselves.
Yeah.
So when you go to a doctor and you say, hey, here are all the other specialists I've seen for adjacent, similar, or other issues that are part of this larger picture.
Yep.
I just wish some of them had the objectivity. Some of my favorite doctors are actually either nurse practitioners or physician's assistants or something. And I just find that they think more critically, I won't name names because I don't want to get anyone in trouble with their networks. But I call her my GI doc. She is not a physician, but she will pull together the natural remedies for certain things and the research. And we will sit there, she's got her laptop, I've got my phone, and we're doing research together and problem solving things together. And I just love her for that. So, I just had a recent visit with her. I went in and said, okay, because I've seen her for a number of years about, my celiac and all the stuff. And so this whole histamine thing, intolerance that, I said, okay, listen, I think I figured it out. And I just need you to know, am I crazy or do I have something here? And so we look at everything. I go through and, the whole history. And she's like, oh my gosh, it really could be it. It really could be it. I'm like, so what can be done about it? And she's like, before I just put you through a whole bunch of other tests that are super expensive, try these supplements. If it helps your body eliminate all that excess histamine, you got it. And it's like another genetic factor. So that's what I've been doing, which is why I'm testing today. That's
why the caffeine.
Yeah. 3
in a week. Very exciting.
So anyway, I appreciate that about her. And then, you have people like people on our campus in some respects, that we teach to advocate for themselves.
Yes.
And everybody that you go to, anyone that you go, that doesn't mean they might be an expert in something. It doesn't mean they're an expert in you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
everybody's different. And I imagine that makes being a medical doctor, incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
investigate. Ask some other questions.
Well, I was going to say sometimes with like PAs or nurse practitioners or, people more along those lines, I think it is sometimes, not in all cases, because I know some who have huge caseloads, but my experience with the nurse practitioner that diagnosed my acid reflux that was causing me to wake up and be sick.
Yes.
Like this was many years ago. And when she figured it out and I kind of dealt with it that time that I had an episode, I really haven't dealt with it a lot ever since. And that was it's been probably 20 years.
Knowledge is power though, right?
Because when we knew what it was, I could kind of mentally prepare myself that this is how my body likes to deal with stress.
Right.
It wants to throw up in the morning. And it was gross and I'd feel fine. And so it was this really weird thing. But she spent probably 45 minutes with me asking questions and listening. And you're sure it's not triggered by foods? And I was like, no, I've never really had stomach issues, food issues. No. Okay, well, then it's because I thought I had an ulcer. And she was like, no, And because to me, an ulcer is triggered by stress. Well, there's plenty of other things triggered by stress too. In my case, it was acid reflux. So anyway, knowing what it was huge, but it was a ton of time spent with me and whatever. This is a little rabbit hole, but our pediatrician is wonderful. And fortunately, we haven't had to see him besides like kind of normal well check visits for the most part. But my youngest, as a small child, just was not a good sleeper. To the point that we went to see the doctor because somebody said, if he's having, like, there are certain conditions where, like, if they're not breathing great, so, like, if they have big tonsils or something like that. In my friend's case at the time, she had a kiddo that had to have, like, their tonsils out, and then they were able to, or something similar to that, they could breathe better at night. They weren't waking up like they had been. And it was, a condition. And she said, I don't know, you might just have or is it the adenoids? Something like that. Like, have them check it. And so I'm like, all right. So we go in and that doctor, God bless him, same thing, spent like 45 minutes, asked a bunch of questions. And at the end of it, he said, he looked him over. He looked at his, throat, all these things. And he said, these are the hardest appointments because I have nothing to tell you that it's clearly wrong.
Yeah.
Some kids just aren't great sleepers.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know, I have one. And fortunately, it took several years, but my kid kind of grew out of that. He does sleep through the night now. But we were like, our oldest slept through the night after like 4 months. And the only time he started waking up after that was when he was either sick or teething. And we just didn't have a lot of issues. So when we suddenly had issues, I was like, what's wrong with him? Yes, exactly. So those moments, though, but he was like, these are really hard appointments because I got nothing. Some kids don't sleep.
Yeah,
but it was appreciated.
Yeah,
he
at
was
least you
honest.
knew, and you didn't have to worry that there was something underlying. And
exactly. Yeah. And anyway, but I remember going in and being like, let's be clear. This appointment is more about me and my husband than it is about the child. Like, we are dying. We are being woken up all the time.
I wonder if it's a first child, second, because my first child slept through the night from day one. I'm like, this was the best. And then we have Alec, and it took him like 5 years.
This is my theory.
Yeah.
The first one makes you think that you know what you're doing.
And you want another one.
Yeah. Yep. That's my theory.
You could be right.
But I love them both.
You could be right.
I love them both. And I know you do too.
I do too.
What are you escaping to before we go? More London fogs.
My British accented tea here, yes. I know, I keep telling my Irish husband he should go live in Ireland for a while and come back with the accent. Because I like that one too.
That would be...
That would
nice. Be okay.
That'd be okay. I think it would work for him.
I like a good Australian accent.
Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
What? Oh, there is. We must have watched it 10 times over Thanksgiving. I wonder if I can find it for you when we get off the air. But there's this little kid who I'm guessing is probably right around 4. His name's Carter. And his dad was recording him making a smoothie. And so he's a little British kid.
Ah,
And
yes.
he's like, how does he say it? I'm feeling rather poorly. And he's got his little apron on, and he's got all the ingredients. I've got some banana and some strawberry and mango and blah, blah, blah. There's ice cubes, and he's got everything ready. And then he's got his little safety knife, and he's cutting these things up, and he's describing what he's doing. It is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Little kids with accents are kind of awesome.
And then so my daughter and I would start using little phrases from this, like, I'm feeling rather poorly. And it was just so cute. And my husband's like, what are you guys doing? I'm like, okay, you have to watch this kid. I just want one. I just want to bring him home and he can just talk all the time. He's so cute.
Well, speaking of kids,
Anyway.
That's my escape. We're escaping to another swim meet because that's the mode that we're in these days. 'Tis the season for swim meets. So that's all. That's all I got.
That's all you got?
Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We appreciate every single one of you. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend who you think might like it too. We are just a small team writing, researching, producing, promoting the show in our spare time to hopefully one day be able to provide operational support for the nonprofit where we work, where our mission is empowering people to overcome crisis and achieve self-sustainability. Which reminds me, we didn't do a one heart
No, I was just
woohoo.
going to say we're doing that every day. Let's see what this one was because I know we had one.
Okay,
flash
so
up.
it's not, this isn't what flashed across our screen wasn't a one heart woohoo.
Oh, okay.
But it still was good news. It just didn't have anything to do with the guest. But we do have one.
We do have one.
We have one of our favorite guests ever is moving into his own apartment soon.
Yes. And this
fantastic.
was like, this story, my God,
Yeah.
you can't help but fall in love with this person. I mean, just one of the nicest human beings on the planet.
Uh-huh.
And like the life trajectory has been challenging. Challenging. And one of my favorite things is watching him come home from work.
Uh-huh.
I mean, and he goes right past my office window, and I'm proud of everybody here, but this one just has a special place in my heart. And when we talk about, like, we were not designed to have street level, visible homeless come to us directly. So we were, everything was formulated around the people who were falling through the cracks, which was the invisible. There weren't a lot of services or opportunities. And so it was like this undercurrent of forgotten people in our community that, but for some basic supports, could actually move forward and upward in life, right?
Yeah.
However, we have had
Several people.
over 4 years now, half a dozen really solid, from visible homeless to self-sufficiency, come through. And this one, sobriety was an issue. And I mean, I think has been sober for probably close to 3 years now and is really dedicated to that, rebuilding his relationships with family, including a daughter. And one of my favorite things, you know what, we should link it to the episode, the video clip of him where he's having that realization of like how much money he's earning, like how dramatically different his life is. And it's not just about money.
No.
It's about status in life. It's about the mental health. He talks very, very much about mental health and the importance of that in that healing journey. And now the stability and all this stuff. And it's like, we're so happy for him. I am going to cry when he flies off into the world. But
he promised us he would keep in touch.
Yes,
And that
and I
he would
believe him.
come back and speak on our behalf because he is very much a success story. So,
when he came to us, looking down at the floor, wouldn't look you in the eyes, it was heartbreaking. Just so beat down by life and circumstances. And then to go from that to 2 years plus later, I'm at a social function. I think it was a fundraising event or something.
A retirement party.
Oh, retirement. Maybe it was a retirement party. And I'm there, and I'm kind of surprised to see him. It turns out he knew the manager of the venue that we were at. And I see him, and I go to say, and again, from being really shy and kind of, stoic, gives me a hug, and I'm just like, it was just such a happy day. And then talk about what we heard today in E-Team with the kids.
Oh, yeah. So
best.
we're in the holiday season, which is always a fun time of year because we do get a lot of gifts. We get a lot of people who, want to spread the love, during the holidays. And a couple of those places are schools. And so ironically, two of the schools where our kids who are on campus would go. So if they're in a school in the city that they already are established in and they want to stay there, they are allowed to stay there under the rules that they're under with the McKinney-Vento program. But if they want to go to a different school, or maybe they're not enrolled and they are starting fresh here, we have our schools that are our neighborhood schools, if you will. And so two of the three chose us for different holiday type fundraisers. So one was Kindness Day at a middle school. The other one was they called it Pennies for Pillows, Dollars for Daily Needs. And they did a little fundraiser. We're going to find out next week how they did. But the middle school that's in our area, chose us as a charity for Kindness Day. And one of the teachers at this middle school said when they announced that One Heart was the charity of choice for this, two of the kiddos waved their hands and were like, that's where I live. Super proud of it, which is awesome because you think of stigma that comes with having lived in poverty or having, maybe been in very poor housing situations or moving from place to place to place, never really knowing which roof is going to be over your head when, if there is one over your head every night or not. And but we always feel like this campus is a gem, it really is. And I tell people all the time the accommodations are nothing fancy, but they're warm on cold days and they're clean when people move in. I think the place is beautiful.
Underselling it because this campus
it's lovely.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
And the rooms are, we don't have art on the walls in the units, but we do throughout the facility and carpet. They're nice.
They're nice units.
They're very nice units. And we saw that in the early days too, right away, that kids were when they're, drivers are trying to get them back, no, you have to turn here.
We're at One Heart now, right? Yeah.
and then the part that just got me is they will wear their badges, their One Heart badges to school, just proudly, look, I have arrived now. It's a status thing for them. And it is just so precious.
Yeah.
And that they're not, they're just not stigmatized by it.
No.
It's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
And we see that to the level now where we have actually had people lying.
claim to be
One Heart guests with landlords and employers so they can get the value and benefit of that.
Yes.
That we've had to come up with some screening things for the said employers and landlords and I said it back in 2017. I'm like, one day our employers and our landlords are going to covet One Heart guests and graduates. And obviously that's working. So it's really special.
But we don't encourage lying.
No,
so
we've tried
to make sure we can validate.
But those are not One Heart guests.
Yes.
Or graduates. Our people don't need to lie. So, but I think we've drilled the point home. We really are a true podcast for a cause. So you can feel good about spreading the word. Please spread the word. Please become a patron. $2 a month is the low level, $10 a month. You can rate, review, subscribe. That actually helps new listeners find us. It literally would take you 5 seconds or less to just go give us a 5-star rating or review. And then the way the podcasting world algorithms work, it'll be like, oh, you listen to this true crime or you listen to this topic. It'll help you expose our podcast to other listeners. And then the more listeners we gain will equal more ad revenue.
Yeah.
So patron is one part of it. The patron revenue is one part of it. Julie and I don't get to keep that and go on shopping sprees or buy lots of London Fogs. We actually, all that money goes back to support our guests. You can check out and learn more about our website at escapepod.live or oneheartrc.org if you'd like. You can link out to our social media. You can reach out to us at justbecause@escapepod.live, or if you have an escape story involving escaping period products or hysteria, please share that story with us at escapeartist@escapepod.live.
We are closing the hatch on this episode of the Escape Pod. Remember, trauma may be inevitable. How you grapple with it is optional. So stay resilient.
And stay away from tampons.
And keep laughing.
Bye, everybody.